Welcome to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gann, the stories about entrepreneurs, business leaders, and HR professionals and their successes and struggles along their journey. In this podcast, we also discuss the HR challenges that people face and the tips and strategies that have helped them. If you love to learn through storytelling, join us. My guest today is Gay Hamilton. Gay Hamilton is a serial entrepreneur with an amazing background in corporate, small, big, large, and she has her own company she's founded called GoInnovation. I'd like to welcome you to learn about this very eclectic, amazing experience that Gay has had. Welcome, Gay.
Thank you, Hilda. Great to see you.
Yes, great to see you. We weekly meet because we're
Yeah.
accountability partners. So yes, it's great to see you and great to have you on the show. I want to start off by kind of share with us your background in terms of your, where you went to school from a university college perspective, and then what was your beginning career like?
Okay, so I started off coming out of high school having no idea where to go or what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my godfather suggested that I get into agriculture because people are always going to have to eat, was his take on it. Never mind all that fancy technology stuff. Stick with food. So I did. I went to a very small agricultural college and took business and commerce. And when I graduated, landed into a large agricultural firm that was based in Mississauga. So I got to leave home and move to the big smoke and all that kind of stuff. It was really fun. And I was with the company for about 22 years and started off in accounts payable and worked my way up to Treasury Operations Manager for the Canadian side of the company. And for probably the last 10 years I was there, we were going bankrupt, which wasn't as much fun as you think it might be. It was very challenging and very tough. We filed for protection from creditors once and came out the other side, carried on, and then a few years later, we're deep into trouble again. We were losing about $1.5 million a month.
Wow.
So needless to say, it was a very, very difficult environment. Really super hard on all the people that were involved in it. And we worked very hard to try to sell off the assets that weren't viable, get it ready to be sold to another company. And we were able to get another company in enough time that it kept our customers whole and our suppliers whole, and they were able to carry on their business as going forward entities. So that was really, our sort of success story at the end of the day, was being able to provide for those folks and let them go forward. But yeah, it was definitely a tough, challenging time.
Wow. I like how
Yeah.
you said we did our best to preserve as many entities and and provide the credits that credit proof to provide people with the money that they too would not be impacted by you. So kudos to you. What happens next? What I mean, 22 years in that kind of environment, obviously growing and stretching and learning way more than you probably wanted to. What
Yeah,
happened
well,
next?
yeah, and there was a lot that I learned that was fun and cool. I mean, I sort of came into the world of work as we were moving from big IBM mainframes into desktop computing. So it was a really fun, cool, interesting, challenging time from that perspective. The whole financial, impact on everything wasn't so much fun. So at the end of the day, when the new company came in, they didn't need treasury in our company and the new company. So I worked with their treasurer to move the functions and downscale the whole thing. And then at the end of the day, I think it was like 18 months later, took the package and left. And fortunately, at that point, had an opportunity. The friend of mine presented that she was working for a small software company in Burlington, Ontario, and they were spinning up a sister company that was going to be a web-based document exchange company. Was I interested? And I absolutely was. So went in as director of client services. So it was it was fantastic, and it was so new and so innovative that
So
it was
what
great.
year would this be? Because you're talking about new, and people are saying, but that's, that's everything, right?
That's not new. Yeah, so that's 2000.
2000.
Yeah. Yeah. So in those days, the biggest difficulty we had when we were selling to prospects was convincing them that the internet was safe and what the internet was and how it would work and how we would make sure that nobody else got their documents, that only the right customer and the right supplier, we were exchanging documents that way, and it would all work out fine. And how ironic, here we are, you know 20 years later, 22 years later, saying, whoa, don't trust the internet. Don't, you've got to be more careful. You've got to watch out for stuff. And, we've kind of gone full circle.
Yeah, but I think it's
Yeah.
important to put things in its perspective. Otherwise, people would say, oh, so you joined a software company. Because I remember when we were starting our company back in the mid 90s, and people would ask us for documents. Well, those documents did not exist on the internet. You had to mail for them and
Yeah.
get somebody to send it. And when you're sending out a proposal, you're not going to get the document before you have to submit the proposal. So yes, the internet was, Google was still in its infancy in the late 90s. So
Yes.
this was an opportunity for you to jump in. So is that part of your nature? Just jump in and try things? Like,
Yeah, very much so. Very much. Yes. I would say the biggest successes I've had in my life are when I just throw caution to the wind and just jump for something that sounds really cool, really interesting, and I can see the future. And coincidentally, some of the worst decisions I've made, the same thing holds true. But even a bad decision just means that it's going to involve another twist or another, bit of flexibility to turn that into something that is going to work out. So
I like how you
yeah,
say it is a dual-edged sword, right? Because there is
yeah,
the uncertainty, and that uncertainty can be exciting, and it can
yes.
lead to a successful wow, or it can be, well, oh
Oops.
well, right?
Yeah,
And some people can't aren't comfortable with the uncertainty, so they don't. And then
yeah,
some people become uncomfortable with the certainty, and it's like I told you so, and then they become a little bit gun shy.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And anytime I've spoken to somebody that's sort of in the early stages of their career and looking forward, I always say, try to push yourself to take the jump. Take the jump. It's worth it. It's always worth to try something new, to try something different. Because you can always modify as you go. It's not, one and done kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, because you never know where you're going to find your passion if you don't kind of try some things,
Yeah.
or that all of a sudden you say, "Hey, I tried this, and it just like it was amazing, and now I'm a specialist in this area," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
And the reverse is true as well. I started into this job and I absolutely hated it, but I'm going to stay with it because it's safe, or, I know what to expect from every day, and that just leaves your life as kind of stale and kind of
yeah.
kind of difficult to deal with, I think.
I mean, for some people, that would be their comfort, and
Yeah.
that's great. But for you, I think that would have been sounds
Yeah.
like it would be difficult. So you
Yeah.
accepted this opportunity to get involved in the software company. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. So we started in and with great hopes, and it was all very .com startup ish and that kind of stuff. A whole bunch of management and a whole bunch of salespeople and that sort of thing, and very quickly realized that the whole world had changed and it was all very different, and that the salespeople that we'd hired had no idea what the product was or how it was going to work or the opportunities. And that, again, that's something I've always been able to focus on is, no, the customer is saying this, that's what we need to provide. Not, we can't interpret that a different way. You have to take it at face value of what they're looking for. So very early on in our early days, we got two huge US partners that were companies, and they were going in selling their old school solution to companies who are now saying, well, that's great that you can solve that much, but we need this little web piece to attach to it to work with all our smaller companies and the smaller guys that can't do that. So that's when we came in. So they would sell us along with their solutions, and that was part of the reason they were making more sales, is because they had us along. So in those days, I was doing remote selling. So I would be on a conference call. I'd be on a phone in Burlington, Ontario, and they're in New York City somewhere selling this whole thing, and you're trying to keep a word in edgewise on the conference call and no visual at all. So the whole remote thing to me was pretty like, well, okay, I've done this for a long time. This is easy stuff. But it was great, and we built up the business to the point where it was attractive for somebody else to buy, and they bought us and kept it for, I think, about 4 years. And then they decided that they wanted to get out. So two partners and I went together and bought the company. And as much as it is scary to buy a company, this was kind of easy to do because I'd been with the company all along, and we knew there were skeletons and we knew where they were. Mm-hmm. So we could account for those in the purchase price as we walked through the door. I think it would be terrifying in today's world to buy a company, like an existing company, especially a technology company, without knowing, what was really there. Yeah.
When you say buy, or sell and buy, what size of company were you at that time?
Well, we went in, the annual sales, I think, were about $1.5 million when we went in. We were 10 people, and pretty lean even at that. And then when we actually purchased the company and were moving through, we were down to 5 people. Mm-hmm. 80% of the hardware was more than 8 years old, wow. Which is old in technology terms. And so we had to move the servers into a different hosting facility. We had to move the office from downtown Toronto back to Burlington, where it needed to be. There was a lot of stuff that went along with that whole thing. And then from there, probably, I think in the 4 years we were there, we doubled the sales. So we're up to, I think it was about $3.5 million by the time we left. The interesting part of it was, because we're sending business documents through our servers, we could see the value of the documents that were going through. And we were dealing with, Fortune 500 companies. So the amount of documents that went through, it was incredible, the amount of dollars worth of documents we had. So, yeah.
So fun. You were a partner of a company that did $3 million in sales.
Yeah.
Impressive. And impressive, I know I'm pulling the gender thing, but impressive for a woman in the early, 2000s, 2010-ish area. Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
What happened next? Did you sell, and where to next?
Yeah, so the partners and I got to the point of, what's the next step? How do we grow this company beyond this point? I said right, they said left. So they bought me out, because I didn't agree that the go left, just, it didn't suit our talent skills set. Mm-hmm. I didn't think. So I was headed right. So I was getting bought out. I was headed on an African safari. I was all set. I was going.
Like literally a safari. You were going on a vacation.
Going on it. Yeah. I always wanted to do that. And I thought, now's the time. I'm going to, I get the buyout. I'm going to be all set. And I called one of my most favorite customers, that was a company in Colorado, to say, I'm leaving, but don't worry, you're in good hands. Everybody else is still here. Your project is going along really well. And he said, you got to come and sell for us, because I know you can sell, because you sold us. And we need a sales guy right now. So I'm like, well, that's so flattering. That's great. I'll be with you in a couple of months. I'm just, doing it. No, you have to be here in 2 weeks. You have to be ready to go in 2 weeks. So I had to get a work visa. I had to get, all the border crossing stuff sorted out. They had to get ready to pay a Canadian employee. It was kind of nuts. But I ended up at Marco Polo Island for a sales kickoff, knowing nobody. That's not true. I knew one guy who, as I walked into the company, he started the same day I did, and we had worked together for about 10 years in previous companies. So we stood at the bar together the first day at the grand opening, going, "Wow, like this is pretty cool." So that was fun. Yeah, so I was with them for a couple of years, and then out of the blue, got a phone call from a guy that I had worked with in the past that was working for a company in Ireland. We're looking for a COO to come in and manage the company while we completely change the ownership of the company and rebrand. Are you interested? Sure. So I had 2 Zoom conversations with the folks there, one with the CEO and one with the senior management level, and sold my house and packed up and went to Ireland. Having never been to Ireland, but it was one of those opportunities that I just knew was going to be wonderful. Like it was going to be great. And it was only 18 months. So even if it wasn't great, it was only 18 months. So I can manage that.
So I know people are listening to you and they're going, where does she get this energy to just sure forget the safari for 2 months. Sure, let me start this job. Sure, Ireland. Sure, why not? Where does that come from, Gay? Where?
I really don't know. Because I mean, my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Mhm.
My dad worked as a customs broker. So he worked 8 to 5, 5 days a week. That's it. That's all. There was no overtime. There was no extra pressures there. So very, very, very different to the life that I've lived. But
Because
yeah,
what you described is more people who enjoy routine, enjoy predictability, and that's the comfort zone. And yet
yeah,
you are the antithesis of that.
yeah,
Just,
yeah. As soon as it gets comfortable, I start looking for something else. Yeah. Or something. I mean, these things just tend to find me. And I think part of that is knowing when an opportunity comes along that it is an opportunity and to look into it as opposed to just, take the safe approach. And I know that's really difficult for a lot of people. And
yeah,
and
yeah.
I've had a lot of people say you must be crazy. Like you can't just jump like this. But it works for me.
Now, one would say, "Oh, that's fine. She has no family, so she can just up and run." Kind of give us a little bit of your background in terms of your family life, because this sounds like a
Yeah.
woman who has the freedom to do whatever, whenever she wants.
Yeah, and I didn't, and I think maybe you may have hit on something there, Hilda. That maybe part of it was because I was married and had 2 little kids. They were, I think, 8 and 10, I guess, when my husband and I divorced, and so my life was very structured and very routine, and I had to be there, pick up and drop off, and weekends and homework and that kind of stuff. So by the time they were about 20, 22, I guess, um, when some of these other opportunities, certainly the opportunity in Ireland came up. So at that point, it was like, I've put in my time here, and now it's time for me. And again, I knew it was only for 18 months. So, did the flip. But yeah, so I have 2 sons and 2 wonderful daughters-in-law and 4 grandkids who are very close. We're all very, very close, physically as well as emotionally. I see them all the time. And yeah, yeah,
I see that. I see the sparkle when you talk about your family. So it's you love the adventure, but the family is important too. So
yeah,
Ireland, was it what you had anticipated it would be? Because, and I'm not just talking about the work environment, but being in Ireland,
yeah,
the culture.
yeah. Oh yeah, it was way more, I think, than I expected. The Irish people were so warm and so welcoming. Um, it was a fantastic experience. One of my one of my favorite stories was I got stuck. So the first day I had my own car, like I'd rented a car, and I insisted that it could not be a standard, had to be an automatic because I'm on the other side of the road, so I can't do well all of that all at once. So I had this automatic, and I accidentally ended up downtown Dublin. So, trying to follow road signs and stuff, because the road signs are all in Gaelic with the English underneath.
Oh,
So you have to get used to signage and where you're going and, the whole thing. So driving around, I ended up in Dublin, and to this day, I can't remember what was going on, but I ended up going around and around, and I couldn't get out of this. And it wasn't a roundabout. It was like around a block kind of thing. And this man was standing on the sidewalk and saw me go by, I guess, 3 or 4 times. He stepped out in the middle of the road and directed me to, you're taking this lane, and it's one of those where there's like 15 different ports that you could go. Directed me through.
He must have had a chuckle, and then he thought, I must help this lady.
Crazy tourist. Yeah, crazy tourist obviously needs some help. Yeah, but they were great. So I joined a hiking group while I was in Ireland. So hiked all over the place in Ireland. Went with them. We did a 100-kilometer walk into Rome in Italy. So we got dropped off in the middle of nowhere, northeast of the city, and walked. And it actually turned out to be, I think it was 110 kilometers by the time we finally got to the center of the city. And you don't realize how hilly Italy is until you walk
Okay,
those
7 roads lead to Rome in the hills of.
Yes.
How many days was that?
6.
Okay, so and you had accommodations each night, or you just had to figure it out?
Yeah, no, we had accommodations, okay. and they moved our bags. The only downside was the trail was not marked very well, so we got lost a bunch of times. So
wow,
it was something. It was so much fun. And at the end of it, as we're walking this trail, my Irish friends are saying to me, so what is Canada like? Like, really, like, what's it really like? Would you see this kind of stuff in Canada as we're seeing vineyards and apple orchards and cherry orchards and that kind of stuff? And I said, parts of Canada, yeah, look very much like this, but there's all kinds of other topography and cold and snow and hot and sunny and, all that kind of stuff. So they came here the year after I came back, and we did quite an extensive trip all through southwestern Ontario. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your business today. I mean, this is a woman with a diverse past with software and finance and marketing and client service. What are you doing today? You have your own business, GoInnovation.
Yeah, and I always say GoInnovation.ca because there is a .com as well that isn't associated with me. And so, yeah, so trying to take my experience of being the small company, working with a large company, or being a large company, working with a lot of smaller companies. The smaller companies quite often don't get the same advantages that a larger company would get as far as pricing, as far as negotiation, as far as being aware of what the opportunities are. So I'm doing a technology consulting gig right now, whereby I can deal with clients and say, okay, let's just review. Let's just have a conversation about what do you do now? How are things working? Are you getting, are you keeping up to date basically with different processes and that sort of stuff? Is there anything we can do to automate what you're doing to save you time and money and, smooth the processes out for your customers? That kind of consulting kind of gig. And then from there, I have a group of technology partners that I've known for a long time, that I've used, that I either worked with them or they worked for me, or we've known each other for a long time in some fashion, that I can refer people in. So it's a warm referral. It's not just I found this guy in the Yellow Pages sort of introduction. So introduce them in.
And I know you because of your creative, innovative nature, you're always thinking when people are talking to you about how this fits their bigger picture. That's just who you are, right?
Yeah.
Because of my HR expertise and my love of creating strong work cultures, I want to ask you, in your experience, was there a time that there was a particular HR struggle that you had in your career or your businesses, and how did you work through that?
Um, I would say probably the biggest struggle that we had was when I was working with the large agricultural firm. We had 400 full-time employees, and we had to downsize to 85. So there were weeks, week after week, where we were having to sit down with 2 or 3 people a day, every day, to say, I'm sorry, but this is the end of the road. And those conversations are so difficult. And the impact that you're having on these people's lives, and how awful this is. And the hope is that they're going to find something else and it's going to be better. And they too are going to get out from under this financial burden that the company was bearing. Go to another place that did have raises, that did do training, that did provide some of those employee perks that they're not otherwise going to have. But it was really tough. It was a really, really difficult time. Yeah. And I would sort of start off the conversation and lead into sort of where we are and what's happening, and then say to the person, do you want to continue this conversation with me? Would you rather have an HR person? Because one of the things people quite often say to me is, I'm not very touchy-feely at times. So I'm not that warm, fuzzy person that you want, because I tend to say, okay, here's the bad news. Now, what are we going to do? And I know that that's not right for a lot of people. Some people were absolutely on the page with me, but some people preferred to do the HR route. Yeah. And probably the best advice I got through the whole thing was one of the receivers from Ernst & Young that we were working with. And he said, you have to be clear, be brief, but be kind.
Yeah.
Because, you never know when this is going to come back to you, or the impact that you're having on these people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever we needed to terminate, I always recommended that the person who is that person's supervisor and an HR person are there together to
Yeah.
balance, right?
Yes.
And almost support the manager, because it's not easy.
It's
And I
not
would
easy.
always, at the end, I would phone them or ask them later, how are you? How are you feeling? Because it's just as hard on the manager as it is for the employee. And
Yes, it is.
they would always say, it's crappy, I feel bad, I couldn't sleep last night. And I said, it never gets easy. It
No,
never gets easy. And the day it becomes no problem is the day you've lost your humanity. Because, as you
that's
said,
right.
it's
That's right.
lives. It's the person's livelihood and life and finances that are being impacted. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's difficult for sure.
What's the one piece of advice that you would share with your younger self now that you've lived such this really changed environment kind of life? What would you share
Yeah.
with that younger version of Gay?
Um, I think I would probably go right back down to education. When you're young and debt free and generally relationship free kind of thing, is take the time and do the education. And by that I mean do the African safari, go travel the world, go see Europe, go do all these things that you've heard about or read about, those kinds of things, as well as get the formal education from, the schools that can really help you, move along a career much faster, because you're that much better informed as you go along. But I would definitely start with more education of every shape or form.
I like how you started the education part with the personal awakening, self-learning. So the question I have to ask now is, did you get on a safari yet?
No.
Oh my God, you have to do that.
No, I've never made it, because the jobs just sort of
Yeah,
fell one
I
into
hear you.
another,
I hear you. I hear you.
and then coming back to Canada, my kids were having kids, and it just didn't fit into what was going on, and then COVID hit. So
Yeah,
I haven't had the
yes, no,
opportunity
no,
for the
no
last.
opportunity.
the
What
last few years.
what would you tell our listeners? A piece of advice you want to share in general that will help them with their either their careers or their journey as an entrepreneur.
Um, I, I think probably the number one thing is reach out. You are not alone. You
Mhm.
do not have to make this decision all by yourself. There's so many people and so many resources that are available. Find a business coach, find a friend that you can,
Yeah.
communicate with back and forth. There's associations. There's so many different resources. Don't feel like you're stuck in this all by yourself, and that, yeah, there's so many things to reach out to, and if you hear of an opportunity, explore it. And if that means asking 16,000 questions of the people that are proposing it, whatever, do that, because it's going to add that flavor to your life. That, yeah.
I would agree with you. It's connecting with people and learning about them as individuals. Because when you have people that are you're connected with, it's almost like another set of eyes and ears listening out for you. Hey, have you heard about
Yes.
this? Because this today I just read a Facebook uh, chat, and that person was starting off in terms of shipping ideas, and I just found out one called Chit Chat, and it's so cost effective, so I shared that with the person. So it's a matter of helping each other, and I learned that from somebody else. So that's the beauty of
Yeah.
connecting with people.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you one last question. You have had a very rich and challenging, maybe not for you, but challenging life that has given you that richness. What is the legacy that you want to leave?
Well, I think what I'd like to do is I've got probably another 2 or 3 years of growing GoInnovation and getting it to be where I think it needs to be, and sort of healthy enough, big enough. And then I'd really like to look at a couple of young women that are coming out of a STEM type of program or STEM kind of background that have the technology background, and work with them to let them take over GoInnovation, because the amount of technology enhancements and advancements that we're seeing these days are coming so fast and furiously that I'm going to be out of my depth here, in that kind of time frame. And I think that's where their education should be focused now, on the technology side of it and where we're going and how it works. And then I can add sort of, the business flavor to that, and then hand it off, and away it goes. Yeah, that's my goal at this point. And then I'm going to Africa. For real.
You
For
can
real.
go for a short one too. You don't have to go for the 2 month one. You can go for
Right?
even a 3 day stint.
I
Um,
know.
because my husband, for one of our milestone anniversaries, we went to South Africa, and then we did a 3 day safari. It was amazing. It
Yeah.
it was amazing, amazing experience. So I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to you being able to do that. Well, I
Yep.
think
I'm ready
we could
anytime.
talk all day, Gay, but we should let people know, how do they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So it's easy. It's gay at goinnovation.ca. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's Gay Hamilton, and I'm in Guelph, Ontario. Um, that's probably the easiest ways to get to me. Yeah, for sure. And it's, I think, one of the big things that I talk about these days is cybersecurity. And if you check out my website, there's a link there that gives you the ability to do a very short, like 5-minute kind of questionnaire that can help sort of start down the road of, is your company cyber secure? Are you in really good shape? Because in a lot of cases, people are in better shape than they think they are. So it sort of helps that, identify where you might be falling short, or that you're in really good shape, in which case you'll sleep a lot better. So absolutely, look me up, and happy to talk, happy to, just have conversations with people anytime.
Well, thank you for sharing that, particularly the cybersecurity, because We hear so much about ransoms, and these are the big companies, but it can still happen in small ways to individuals and small companies.
Well, yeah, and again, on my website, there's a story of cybersecurity. So a friend of mine is a part owner in a small company in Toronto. So I think it's about 35 million a year in sales, and they were hit with a ransomware attack. And when they first asked how much is the ransom, they were told it was $45,000, which for a small company, that's a lot of money. And then they realized it's 45,000 per computer. So they had 30 computers and 7 servers. So the ransom was actually $1.6 million. That takes your life savings. That could cause your company to have to fold. I mean, that's just such an incredible sum of money. And your business is at a complete standstill until you either pay the ransom and get it fixed, or if you can do, use backups and that kind of thing, and re-energize the company that way. And they were really lucky. This friend of mine is brilliant with IT, and she was able to get them back up and running without paying the ransom. But not everybody's that lucky.
No.
So
No.
yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Look into it.
I would take that test.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being on the Rev Up Your Potential podcast, Gay. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Rev Up Your Potential with Hilda Gann. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and Spotify to stay up to date on our latest episodes. For HR tips, news, and strategies, or if you're interested in being a guest on our podcast, visit our website at peoplebrightconsulting.com.